The top story of the hour, the United States has blamed Hamas for rejecting a temporary Gaza truce as it presses Israel again to allow more aid into the enclave. As per officials, Hamas had received a proposal from Egypt and Qatar for a short-term truce and rejected it for not including a lasting ceasefire to the war. In a telephone call with Egyptian Foreign Minister, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that Hamas has once again refused to release even a limited number of hostages to secure a ceasefire. Blinken emphasized the importance of bringing the war in Gaza to an end, securing the release of all hostages, and increasing and sustaining the delivery of humanitarian assistance. Further, Blinken also spoke with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and urged further actions to substantially increase humanitarian aid in Gaza. This comes after the U.S. government demanded Israel to take concrete measures to address the dire humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the State Department says it has not seen a significant turnaround in aid reaching Palestinians in northern Gaza. Washington has told Israel it must take steps in the next month to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or face potential restrictions on U.S. military aid. This is the strongest such warning since Israel's war with Hamas began a year ago. On the other front, Hamas held talks with rival Palestinian faction Fatah in Cairo to discuss the war and their move towards national consensus. Hamas and Fatah are long-term rivals that fought in 2007, in which Hamas seized control of Gaza. But Fatah continues to dominate the Palestinian Authority, which has limited administrative control over areas of the West Bank. Now, meanwhile, the Israeli military said it struck the intelligence headquarters of Hezbollah's Syrian branch in a strike on Damascus. As per reports, the attack killed 2 people. The IDF has intensified its strikes on targets in Syria since it launched a war against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And U.S. has blamed Hamas for rejecting a temporary truce as it presses Israel again to allow more aid into the enclave. No officials say Hamas had received a proposal from Egypt and Qatar for a short-term truce, and they had rejected it for not including a lasting ceasefire to the war. The situation in Gaza's humanitarian crisis persists. In a telephone call with Egyptian Foreign Minister, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that Hamas has once again refused to release even a limited number of hostages to secure a ceasefire. Blinken emphasized the importance of bringing the war in Gaza to an end and securing the release of all hostages and increasing and sustaining the delivery of humanitarian assistance. And for more on this, our correspondent Anas Malik is joining us live from Saida in Lebanon. Thank you so much for joining us, Anas. Now, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry, the death toll from Israeli strikes on Lebanon has risen to 3,000, at least 3,000. And on the same day, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, claim to have killed 2 Hezbollah commanders. And it doesn't seem like the strikes are ending. What is the latest on-ground situation? And tell us about where you are and what is the situation there right now?
Well, Jyotsna, in a year since the Israeli strikes on Israeli aggression on Lebanon began, since the 7th of October, we've seen that now the death toll has risen to over 3,000. The Lebanese Health Ministry confirming that 3,006 people have lost their lives, especially with the increment in attacks since the 30th of September. That being said, we're standing in Sidon, Herat Sidon, which is the 3rd biggest city of Lebanon. It has a population of about 80,000 people, and what you see behind me is a location of a strike that took place about a week ago, an Israeli airstrike in a densely populated neighborhood. I'll just get a side for the benefit of our viewers. It is a densely populated neighborhood which used to be a residential compound where at least 7 people were killed. 3 of them being children. Now, this is in the midst of, as I said, it's a densely populated neighborhood. Right now, this area is not what the Israeli side would be saying it is. And we've seen, having strolled around, having been in here, this place is relatively calmer. It does not have what the Israeli side has been claiming. And we've been seeing visuals like these. We've been seeing targeted attacks mostly on civilian population. As I said, where I'm standing, this place, there used to be a residential compound where 7 people were killed. It was razed to the ground. There are cars still parked here, and this was razed to the ground. 7 people, including 3 children, lost their lives in an Israeli air raid that took place about a week ago. But this is not just one. This is not the only one. More of such raids we've seen. We were in Dahia yesterday, where more of residential compounds were targeted, more of compounds that the Israeli army says have been concentration camps of Hezbollah, but the visuals on the ground are contrary. And one such example is this, where we're standing right now.
Right, and what about the humanitarian situation? We know that where you are, it's near WION The World that you talked about. Tell us more about the humanitarian situation there.
Well, the humanitarian situation is that most of the population from here in Sidon has relocated to center Beirut, to downtown Beirut. There are refugee camps set up here as well. This city is just across or along the Mediterranean Sea. As I said, this is the 3rd biggest city in Lebanon at large. This is also the birthplace of the former Lebanese President Rafiq Hariri. So this humanitarian situation, they're desperately and direly in need of aid. A lot of aid has been sent in from countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like France, UAE, Pakistan. We've seen aid coming in from China, but that's not adequate because we've heard a lot of refugees, mostly shifting from the north and south of the country towards the center, towards Beirut, which is considerably safer. And again, that remains a bigger problem because Beirut's infrastructure cannot accommodate. We're talking about 1.4 million refugees right now here in Lebanon at this point of time, and the number just seems to increase. The other problem is that more in south and in north, attacks have been taking place on buildings without even notifying. So a lot of civilian casualties, more so residential casualties, have been taking place because of that. Just yesterday, the Lebanese Health Ministry put out the figure that 179 health workers have been targeted and killed by Israel since the 30th of September. That also includes the 3 that were targeted yesterday. So overall, the toll stands about 3,006, pardon me on that. And we're just looking at more of these drones hovering over, and the Israeli drones, as they hover over, they continue to cause greater problems or greater mental agony. And we ourselves have been listening to these drones hover over very, very closely as an intimidation. Even now, if I can hear a drone hover over as well. So these are classical methods, as the one would be seen as an intimidation tactic. Jyotsna?
Right. You see, this is also taking place when the U.S. presidential elections are also taking place in the U.S. If you've been able to talk to people there, what are the expectations in Lebanon?
Well, the people here, they're of the opinion that whosoever comes into power in the U.S., Israel being its closest ally, this war has to stop. This uncalled for aggression, as they say, this has to stop. And they really hope and believe that the outcome of today's election in the US, that's miles away from where we are in Lebanon, that would have a great and significant bearing in a positive outcome for this aggression, this war to stop, so that the people of Lebanon can go back to their normal lives, can go back to reconstructing residential compounds like these. The people who are now refugees, who once owned a house, they believe that they can go back to living their own lives in their own houses as how it was pre-30th of September, or in fact pre-7th of October 2023, since when the Israeli raids on Lebanon began.
Right, Anas, thank you so much for joining us and giving all the details. That was our correspondent, Anas Malik, joining us from Saida in Lebanon.